Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Beyond the Balls is a co-production between Women's Sport Australia and Wisp Sports.
We're your hosts, Ella Smith and Georgina Mallen, here to discuss all the topics on women's sport off the pitch.
So today we are lucky to have Emily Chancellor on our podcast. Emily is a current Wallaroo, which is the Australian Women's Rugby Union team. She has represented the New South Wales Waratahs in the Super W League and also plays in the Sydney Uni Rugby Sevens team. Emily was awarded the Wallaroos Player of the Year at the 2018 Rugby Australia Awards, and in 2019 was recognised as New South Wales Waratahs Best Forward. Emily also works at Sydney Uni on top of balancing all her sporting activities. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much. What a kind introduction.
So we'll get straight into it, Em. You've achieved so much in rugby, as Georgina was just saying, despite only having started playing when you were 21.
Yeah.
From that, what do you see as your highest achievement?
My highest rugby performance achievement, I think, kind of a no-brainer it was my debut for the Wallaroos in 2018 on August the 18th against the Black Ferns at home. It was just it's one of those moments that I guess is you do dream of playing for your country. As soon as you sort of get I didn't grow up going, I want to play for Australia, but because I didn't think that rugby was really an option for me as a kid growing up, just it didn't seem like an option to play, full stop. So for me, it was a shorter-lived dream to be an Australian rugby player, but that moment, walking out onto ANZ Stadium in front of family and friends and, being nervous as all could be, but knowing that, I'm ready to prove that this is something that I should be doing, that was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be so phenomenal. You were also part of the first ever Wallaroos team to win on home soil. That was against Japan last year.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what's that like, making history in women's sport, especially as you said, you didn't even realise rugby was an option and now you're out here making history?
Yeah, I think in the Wallaroos group, we don't yes, we celebrated it. That was a huge, huge moment for us because we haven't had that much success at home. However, I don't know, for me that was good, we've ticked the box, let's move on to the next one. I don't want to just be sitting here being happy that we've beaten Japan. I want to beat the Black Ferns. I want to beat the English team. I want to beat everyone. It was so
yeah, right.
It was my I don't know how to put it in words. Absolutely incredible to make and to be part of an achievement like that. But because we play at the moment such few games each year, it's kind of hard to get the victories at home anyway, because we have, in 2018 we played 2 test matches. In 2019 we played 4 test matches. It's
in 2020 it'll be not many at all.
Yeah, well, it was hopefully going to be about 9 this year, but we've heard a couple have been cancelled already, so the numbers are dwindling again. But I guess you've got to it's amazing to be part of an achievement like that and to be part of history, but I guess my aspirations for the history of this game that I'm involved in is still much higher.
Awesome.
Right.
So you recently spoke at the Player Care Conference run by the Premier Sports Network. You spoke about the current climate of women in rugby union, especially in regards to the journey for equality. Can you tell us what you spoke about at that the conference?
Sure. So, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. In relation to the current stand on equality.
Yeah. So basically, I guess I was there on the panel as a guest to speak as a female sports person. And I find it's a really hard conversation to have, because obviously, as an athlete trying to be as professional as possible, I want to be supported. I want to be paid. I want to be recognized for the hard work that I'm putting in. However, I don't think at the moment it's realistic to say that a female rugby player is playing rugby union to earn money. Like, you wouldn't have started playing, when I wouldn't have started playing when I was 21 thinking, gee, I want to make a career out of this. I would love to make a career out of this, and I would love this to be something that I could say was my full-time effort. But at the moment, it's just a reality that it's not. And I think if you're, that kind of adds this awesome element to the game. And so I keep trying to promote, like, yes, pay us, please. Like, keep changing history and keep working towards where it should be in equality, in equality of, I don't want it to be where it is currently in 5 years' time, but it's not. Even from now to when I started, the landscape of the game has changed for women. And I think, history didn't change for men. Men didn't go from being rugby players that weren't paid the next day to being full-time professional, being paid massive money. It did take time, and obviously I don't expect it to take the same amount of time for the men to have developed into professional, because we should be moving quicker. We are behind the times. However, we need to behave as professionals and do it because we love it. And I think I think that makes the game more special at the moment, because we're in a position where, yes, we work. Yes, we're all diverse people. Yes, we have different passions and interests and commitments, but we have this uniting love for the game, which is something that I think you tend to lose a little bit when you're doing something as a job. We don't have to turn up. I don't have to turn up to Waratahs training 3 nights a week and do my extra running twice a week. That's not something anyone is making me do. I haven't signed a contract to be there. I'm doing it because I want to do it. And if I fit it in with work, it's amazing. You turn around and you're like, oh, I have to go to rugby now. You're like, geez, have you lost some of the passion? I don't imagine that we would, because, nor do I imagine many of the men are in that position, but we don't have a chore to go to rugby. This is something we do because we love it. And I think it's important to remember that, as much as then going through and going, well, yes, we've got to fight for an inequality. And I'm never going to sit in a room and, roll over and say, this is amazing. We're so happy where we are, because we're so not happy where we are, but we need to accept where we are in the world and, keep striving for more, but also know that it's not just going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think what you're saying about the passion is such a testament to all women's sports, where, most of them have come from really, really grassroots kind of non-professional levels to build up to where they are now. And I guess that's hopefully the future of 15s rugby as well. And it reminds me of something you said when you were in a podcast with Peter Breen, the Rugby Bricks podcast, and you talked about the idea of the chicken or the egg when it comes to, determining when sports leagues are at that level of signing contracts and when players are being paid for playing, which I guess, that's kind of a broad issue across all sports and regardless of gender, in terms of when people are at that level. Now, because the Super League's only been around since 2018, so it's a really new competition, and as such, players are only paid travel costs. So I'm wondering, you did touch on it earlier, but for you and your teammates, how hard is it to maintain that professional competitive mindset while also having to work other jobs on the side and have other responsibilities?
Yeah, it's not easy every day. It's not easy every week. It is a tough balance, and it's something that you have to almost earn with your own employers. I know I have a fantastic relationship with my boss and my workplace at Sydney Uni, and I can turn to them and go, look, I know we normally work 9 to 5, but I need to be at training at 5 on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because I'm striving to do this other commitment that happens to also be, for me, aligned with the industry I work in. I work at this in sport and fitness at Sydney Uni. So for them to turn around and say, oh, look, I'm not that, keen on you going to training, doesn't shine them in a very good light. So I'm in a lucky position from that side. However, I think, we have teachers, we have students, we have healthcare workers, we have tradies, we have everything under the sun working and playing together,
and everyone has to have that. Well.
Yeah. We have night shift workers who literally, we get to training at 5, we leave training at 9:30, and they go and work their shift after that.
Wow.
And I suppose it's the same thing that I've done, being working during the day and then going to training. But I don't know about that, but that sounds horrible to me. But people do what they've got to do to make it work. Like, you want to be at training. We have I think culture is a huge part of making it possible, because if you hated being at training, or you didn't love the girls you were spending, your nights with, it would make it very difficult to want to ask for the time from the people that are paying you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or to sacrifice the time from family. But it's something that, I guess it is a tough balancing act, but if you're organized, if you want it enough, you can make it happen. And I
wonder if it's also, like you mentioned in this interview with Peter as well, like the fact that there is, playing in Super W and for the Wallaroos is just like adding like visibility and creating visibility of women playing rugby. I wondered, is that is that in your mind a lot when you do go out to play?
It's not necessarily something that's on my mind when I step onto the pitch, but it's definitely something when I think about, like, at the beginning of the year, if I'm planning my schedule for the year, or thinking about what I'm doing, or when times get tough. Yes, I'm doing it for myself, because everyone has to have a selfish aspect to this sort of time commitment. You don't do this thinking about the future generation every day. However, like, I absolutely think about it and go, like, if we are, like, I want to present myself in a good image, but I want the sport to be in a good image. And the only way we're going to get where we want this sport to be, like, the only way I'm going to get this sport to be how I want it to be played, is if I play it, like, if I perform and act the way I think a professional should be. And if I can put this image of women in rugby union out there that is a really positive image and a great, marketable product, I guess we're only going to be helping create some kind of traction to the game, and hopefully create, I don't know, revenue for the players down the track.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's so much about marketability. Like, I know, looking into rugby sevens, who the national teams get the same pay between men and women, and that's a lot of that is because it's been marketed really well. I've read in like different kind of opinion pieces about that.
Yeah.
If we look at 15s, it's not quite the case. There is quite a pay disparity, but again, the teams are very new compared to the men's. The leagues are newer, and like you said in this chat, the women's league is getting better every year, and the pool of players is growing and increasing in standard, because people are, instead of you started it when you were 21, there are girls starting much younger, I guess, now. And training, through, an extra 5 years or so that you didn't have. And yet you've managed to kind of, play at the highest level possible. So I'm wondering, where do you see, the equality within rugby in 5 years, in 10 years?
It's a good question. I think so.
I know it's a big one.
5 years would be 2025, right? So that would be approaching, we would have just had another Olympics. We would be, in 5 years' time, I would like to believe that Super W players were at least on part-time contracts. Depends. I suppose it'd be awesome to see, I'd like to say in 5 years' time, Super W players will be on part-time contracts. They won't be on full-time contracts, but you'll be paid by your states part-time, because the competition still won't be long enough for them to justify a full year. But then you could end up being that you will see a pool of players by 2025 who are full-time rugby. So they would be Wallaroos and state-based contracts, and they would be rugby all year round. And 2020 or 2030, I reckon you'll have full-time female rugby players playing for their state, and like the whole team would be full-time. Whereas I think in 5 years' time, you'll have a percentage of the team that will be full-time and a percentage that will be part-time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so exciting to hear when you know, it's it's obviously we don't know what's going to happen, but it's nice to put that into numbers and look at.
You put it in words and I'm like, oh, maybe I should be planning on playing for another 5 years.
You should. Another issue, slightly different, that faces girls and women's across, all sports really, is the issue of being taken seriously. But I think it's especially in contact sports. This is such a big discussion because I guess, contact sports go against the traditional notions of femininity and what girls and women are capable of in terms of tackling and strength. You've trained with boys teams and have had to say to them, hey, don't go easy on me. I want to improve. I'm tackling girls your size. I'm wondering, how did you gain that skill, and how would you encourage young girls today to be able to speak up and say, hey, you need to take me seriously?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like I've kind of, I've always been competitive. I played netball and swam and surf life saving and soccer and tennis and every sport that you could possibly think of. Thank you so much, Mum and Dad. I love you. But I don't know where the competitiveness came from, to be because that, I feel like, yes, it's having balls to say, oi, what are you doing, and call someone out. But I think it's more just backing yourself and being like, I want to get good at this, and the only way I'm going to get good at this is if you're making it tough. I don't want to leave a training session and be like, oh, I'm amazing, I tackled the guys and they went to the ground, or I tackled my teammates and it was really easy, because it's not easy in a game. So maybe it's that I grew up loving hanging around with the boys that I'm a dad's girl. I love going to the rugby. I've always loved being sort of in those environments, and maybe it's just the people that I hung around with, but I think it's just confidence. You want to get good at something. You do everything that you can to get good. And if that, if the environment puts you in a place that you feel uncomfortable, don't get me wrong. I've been in environments where I have been the quietest mouse. I trained with the Aussie Sevens girls at the early stages of them being full-time. And I was very fresh at rugby. I had not played enough because I started playing rugby sevens. That's how I learned to play rugby. And when I turned up to those training sessions, I was petrified. I was so unsure of why I was there. I was so nervous. I had, I barely had an understanding of
that's a pretty intimidating environment to go into.
Yeah, but in saying that, I think about it, I'm like, well, hang on, most of them hadn't been full-time before. They'd played a lot of touch football or come from various sports, and this was their first full-time experience, and I was sort of riding the wave from a little bit below them in terms of understanding and skill. But really, they were all learning the game as well at that stage. They were just getting to do it as sort of 20 people all the time. But yes, an intimidating experience, but I don't think I probably put my best learning foot forward. I turned up every session, don't you worry about that. I put in 110%, but I know my confidence was so low because I felt out of my depth, that I probably didn't take as much out of the experience as I could have. So there's definitely times for everyone where they're like, I'm not safe. But for me, Sydney Uni has been an amazing place for me for my sport. I played netball there when I was 16 for Sydney Uni, and continued playing netball in the state league team for most of my university degree.
So I'd been around that environment for quite some time, and then going to the, turning up to the boys' trainings because Tom Carter had said come along, and he was one of my fitness coaches at the time, was like, it kind of felt a lot safer than it did being in the Aussie Sevens environment. And maybe that's because the boys weren't like I wasn't a threat to the boys. The boys weren't threats to me in terms of we weren't competing. Whereas maybe in the Aussie Sevens environment, I was a threat to them slightly because I was from the outside still kind of potentially an option at being
totally.
one of them.
I think like with Sydney Uni is awesome for like their facilities, and like you don't actually have to play at like an elite level, but like you're playing at a club level, but like the facilities are just so amazing that like you can just train to like the absolute hardest, and then you'll still get to an elite level rather than having like that really intense environment. And I found that because I play for Sydney Uni as well, and it's just awesome. Yeah, it's a great facility. Like the EAP gym is incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's so good.
It's so good. Yeah. So in relation to sports commentating, so you were recently one of 10 female athletes who participated in a 2-day commentating workshop run by Sport Australia. What was that like?
It was pretty cool, to be honest. It was something that I had mentioned to Jilly Collins last year, she's our women's rugby representative and full-time worker at Rugby Australia, and she sort of pushes a lot of the programs that we are involved in. And I'd said to her, and I'm sure other people had said to her too, but I was like, there's this part of me that really wants to try commentary, and I know that it's a future, you probably shouldn't be commentating necessarily whilst you're still playing because it's sort of the next step, but there's this part of me that really wants to just learn how to do it, because I feel like it's a skill set that you need to develop, and I don't want to finish playing in a year or two and go, oh, how do I stay involved in rugby? Like, and she completely agreed, and obviously had her own motivation as well. I don't know, other people probably talked to her, but it was so cool to get an email from her to a large number of girls and saying, we're running this course with Sport Australia funding with other sports. If you're interested, like, nominate yourself and, we'll see how we go. And to be picked to do it, I just feel like at the moment, as we talked about before, that brand and marketability of an individual and sport, I think it's a really interesting thing to be a part of at the moment. I'll go back to the commentary, but I find that you need, like, not many of us have agents or like a manager or anything, and I'm really intrigued by the image that we can portray and how you manage your own opportunities or sort of set yourself up by using rugby, because we're not being paid. How do you make something of it that's then like future proofing yourself as well, not just saying, hey, I'm a really good rugby player, but how can I make money off rugby, is really, like, in a really sassy way, like how do I use my sport to make a career? If I can't make it at the moment from playing, how can I use it to become a professional? And so, yeah, I think the commentary idea is, firstly, I'm hearing all these women in other sports sort of appearing as guests on the cricket and guests on, or commentating A-League soccer, W League soccer, not A-League soccer. And, I was like, I feel like there's such an opportunity, and I genuinely have always loved watching rugby, and I listen to rugby, and I'm like, I could do that. Like, not tomorrow, but I'm sure I could commentate a super rugby game. I follow the Super Rugby enough. I know the players, I know the teams, like I know what's going on in the game. Why can't you have a female voice in there? And so going through this course run by the Brass Neck Broadcasting, so BNBC was the actual team that ran the commentary course, headed up by Josh Craig and Ned Hall. It was honestly one of those 2-day courses that I was exhausted at the end of it. I feel like I was a sponge. We just, all 10 of the girls that were there were like bright-eyed and just like, oh my goodness, there's so much information, but it was so helpful. Like they were just, I think they said it was their first like all-female commentary course, and it was just like the tips and tricks they gave us. Sure, some of them I wrote down and I was like, oh, I should have known that. Like that's a silly thing for me to be writing down, but like just the way you speak and how to control your voice and things to think about if you're the radio commentator versus a TV commentator were just all such handy tips and tricks. And I mean, we had some pretty incredible people come and talk to us, such as Gordon Bray, who's like, the voice of rugby. And to have him then become like my mentor for commentary for the next year was like, I mean, it's mind-blowing to be given an opportunity like that. I'm just so eager to now try and like commentate, but I've only had one experience so far. But I think it's a way of the future, and I think you'll see it in like every sport in the next 2 years, that females will be not just commentating female sport, but you'll have females co-commentating or like being the lead commentator of men's sport. And I think it's so important for the continued image of women in sport that is growing. But it's like, until it becomes so normal watching men's sport to hear women like women playing the same sport, I think will still be hard for some people. So the more we can normalize women in sport in all facets, the better it will be.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think actually like playing the sport, it gives you like a better perspective on like you can actually talk about it rather than like a third person who's not actually playing, who hasn't played rugby before, like has knowledge on it, but like it's just not the same. But like physically playing, and then like it's so much better. So continuing on that topic of sports commentating, it's currently evident that for rugby union, there's a lack of female commentators in Australia, just like you were saying. So in relation to other sports, for example, AFL, they introduced the 50-50 gender split in their broadcast team. So one of the members of the team, Kerry Underwood, stated in her interview with the ABC that people are taking women more seriously on our TVs and radios. So women are no longer there because of what they look like. It's because of what they're talking about. Do you believe in the potential for Rugby Union Australia to improve the representation of females in their broadcasting team? And like what initiatives do they have to take to like achieve this?
I don't like, so I think most of the broadcasting is not necessarily run by Rugby Australia. Rugby Australia run the broadcasting for their live stream only. So anything that's streamed on rugby.com.au is owned, I suppose, by Rugby Australia, but I'm pretty sure their broadcasting teams are actually Fox Sports.
Yeah, Fox Sports.
So so I'm not entirely sure how much Rugby Australia has the ability to put that sort of measure in place. But if other sporting bodies are doing it, then I'm sure that they have as much right as AFL. I don't know. I get so torn when we talk about like putting in place measures that put females in a position of equality. Like you have boards and you're like, oh, we have to have 25% females on this board. And you're like, but if you have that rule, are you then taking away from my right to be there as just a human? Like, why am I being picked as the 25%? Why am I not just being picked because I'm the right person to be in this position? And I think, it's definitely necessary to start a change effect, but I don't necessarily think that I don't have an issue with listening to a game that is fully commentated by men. You know, as I wouldn't have an issue listening to a commentary completely commentated by women. So I don't want to say that necessarily I think that we should have 50% of all, you know, broadcasting as females in rugby union, because also our audience is quite different. And I guess you still need to play to the audience. And I don't, you know, that doesn't mean that I don't want the audience to change for rugby union. But I do think that, like, it's hard to put a measure like that in place until you've got the right people to be able to do it. Because if you're going to say 50% of broadcasters need to be females, at the moment, the 10 girls that went to that commentary course, you know, and then you've got probably, you know, like Neve Owens, who could probably commentate rugby union. You've got a couple of news presenters and news writers that could also probably, female news writers that could probably jump in a commentary box, like Georgina Robinson. But other than that, from the group of people that commentated, I think 2 of them have retired. So that would only be 2 people that could actually, like, travel and do the Super Rugby games realistically. And I don't think that that's, you know, we don't have the force then behind us to be able to say, well, we should have 50%. So I think at the moment, rugby union shouldn't have 50% women in broadcasting, because we don't have the right, you know, people in place or the resources ready to go. But if we get to a point where we have a good base of females who can commentate, then yes, sure, let's go 50%. But I also don't really love that, you know, putting a rule to 50%.
Yeah, of course. No, I completely agree. So in relation to more commercial sports, for example, AFL, W League and cricket, there's been more exposure of women playing sport, and it has influenced many broadcasters to recognise that women understand the game and can be trusted to commentate. Do you think that commentating opportunities for women will arise once the Super W League becomes more semi-professional or professional, where players will be getting paid? Or do you believe hopeful female rugby commentators should be pushing now?
I think that there's an opportunity right now for some females to be forging the way. Ash Houston is one of those people at the moment who has commentated most of the Super W games in the Eastern region. I think Ash Houston and Gemma, now Nola, are 2 fantastic female commentators in rugby union who will, like, could easily sit there and commentate a Super Rugby game as well. So I think, like, right now, I'd love to see them doing it. Like, I'd love to hear, well, not right now, obviously there's no rugby happening at the moment, but when sport gets back up and rolling, I would love to hear those 2 commentating Super Rugby games. I think in a couple of years' time, when there are a few more people that have been through sort of this either current Super W and Wallaroos level, or when it becomes a little bit more professional and they, you know, maybe have the respect from peers in the male counterpart, for being a professional sports person, then maybe it will be easier. But I don't think necessarily that the professionalism is necessary because they've been playing the same game. Doesn't matter if you're being paid or not being paid at the moment. We play the same game. We play the same rules. We understand what's going on. And you don't need to be chummy mates with the players on the field to know the information about them or to be able to speak the game. So I think really, like, it could happen from the next game that gets played in Super Rugby or test matches for the Wallabies. Whether it will or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah. We'll have to see. Yeah,
that's so true. It's so exciting that is, like, such a closer possibility now, especially if you're doing these workshops and you're learning, you know, you already know about the game, but learning the actual logistical stuff, like how to use a mic and all that. I think that's just giving you basically all the, I guess, resources to make it happen. So it'll be exciting to see what happens, at the end of this year or next year, whenever games are back
completely.
on.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we've asked you enough questions. Thank you so much for coming on. This was pretty nerve-wracking. You've actually done more podcasts than us, but yeah.
Only by one.
Yeah, well, that's double that we've done.
This is true.
But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out. And best of luck with all your training, whatever you can do, I guess, in your little backyard.
Thank you. I don't know if I can shamelessly plug myself here, but on Instagram at the moment, my housemate Taz Shepherd and myself are putting together some entertaining at-home fitness idea videos. So if you want to give me a follow, M_Chance, get on there. It's not necessarily okay, let's do 10 burpees and 10 squat jumps, and that'll give it's a bit of a joke, but I guess at the moment that's what we're after.
Honestly, the entertaining content is what people want to see.
the stay at home challenge.
Exactly. So give me a follow and
we will. We'll have a look at it. Share on the socials.
Amazing. Thanks so much, girls.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Great to chat.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to our first episode of Beyond the Balls. You can find the show notes at wispsports.com. We'll be back in your ears in 2 weeks for another episode. You can find us on socials at Wisp Sports, at Oz Women's Sport, and you can find Em on her Instagram at M_Chance.